This is the $64,000 question, literally, because that's the approximate recommended drive-away price in Australia of the Kia Sorento GT line. So that's what you'll pay if you're a crap negotiator, but hopefully a little less. Anyway, for $64,000, should you dump the big bucks on the fully loaded Kia Sorento 7-seater SUV? That's next. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, the place where Aussie new car buyers save thousands off their next new cars. Hit me up on the website for that. Now, I've been a big fan of Sorento for a few years now, since this current generation shape was released. That was in about 2015. They've tweaked it for 2018, and that means it's incrementally better in so many varied ways. But the price has also come up. And the first thing that hits you in the face when you get in this car is the value proposition. We better talk about that, because the value, more than anything else, is outstanding. Sorento has Apple and Android phone integration standard across the range. There's the 10-speaker premium sound system and the see it from space panoramic roof, plus active LED headlamps and red brake calipers. You can tell a vehicle is fully loaded when the only available option is metallic paint for about $600 in the case of the GT line. That's all there is in the options department, and the only feature that is notably absent is the automated reverse parking system that comes standard in Santa Fe Highlander, which is a notable omission, seeing as they both kinda come out of the same shop. Here's a value exercise you can do for yourself online. If you're in the market for a Sorento GT line, take a look at a seemingly equivalent $60,000 to $65,000 Land Rover Discovery Sport, a vehicle you'd need rocks in your head to own, in my view. Apart from the crap support and the poor reliability, which seem to be pillars of Land Rover ownership, the Land Rover has less power and less torque, and every premium feature you want is pretty much optional. When you price one up, the cost is staggering. Incredibly enough, the premium paint on that Land Rover is more than $2,000 more than the premium paint in this Sorento GT line. Now, I don't know how a Land Rover dealer could look you in the face and deliver that news. All the safety stuff Sorento has standard will cost you an arm and a leg on the Disco Sport. The big fat panoramic roof is almost $2,000 extra. The third seating row is $3,500 in the Land Rover, plus another $1,200 if you want air conditioning vents right up the back. Those cheapskates at Land Rover will even bend you over for $600 just to fit a digital radio receiver. The list of this stuff just goes on and on, apparently without end. So when I talk about value in relation to Sorento, I'm kind of talking about that. And when you look at these allegedly premium 7-seat SUVs, if you were to spec them up and make them equivalent on spec to a Sorento GT line, the reality is the cost of ownership up front is going to be $20,000 more, something like that anyway. And you're also going to be getting, in many cases, less warranty, more expensive servicing, poorer support at both the dealer and car maker levels, and it's going to cost you more to keep these things on the road. But apart from that, great idea. GT line has a host of goodies, like a brilliant 360-degree camera system, and that gives you added safety and also parking precision, and you get radar-based adaptive cruise control. Adaptive cruise control is that next generation cruise control that's based on radar sensing of the traffic in front. So what happens basically is you set your adaptive cruise, and then if you come up on congestion in the freeway, what basically happens is the car slows down autonomously and it maintains a safe following distance between you and the car in front, and you don't have to do all that pesky disengaging and re-engaging of the cruise that you would have to do if you had only standard cruise control. You should give it a go. If you haven't tried Adaptive Cruise, it's a really neat system. It works really well. There's no false positives or negatives, and it's a little bit like flying business class. You know, it's easy to go up the front end of the plane. It's pretty hard to come back. Sorento is good to drive, and even on the GT line with its 19-inch wheels and 55 series tyres, the ride is excellent. It's quiet inside and manages not to be boomy, and the handling is fine for a big 7-seater. It goes where you tell it to, and there are no nasty little surprises in the dynamics domain. This is largely the result of Kia's local suspension tuning program here in Australia. The 2018 makeover let the suspension team loose to have another crack at Sorento, and the ride and handling are even better today. I've got some bad news for you if you're in the market for a V6 petrol GT line. It's diesel only, but even this is a good news, bad news story, because this engine is the 2.2 CRDI diesel engine. We've seen it from this mob for ages now, and it's a really good engine. Even better this time around though, because it's been mated in this model to the new almost magic 8-speed automatic transmission, and like usual, it drives all 4 of these wheels. And that's a big difference between that and the front drive only V6. In all kinds of traction marginal situations, you get a great deal more sure-footedness, particularly off the mark with the all-wheel drive diesel combination. You might be a bit unsure about this. It could be your first foray into the land of diesel motivation. I've got a whole report on that linked to the homepage of the website, so feel free to check this out. The real takeout here though is there aren't too many problems that you would conventionally throw at a vehicle of this kind that 147 kilowatts and 441 newton meters cannot solve. When you don't need it, the third row of seats folds completely flat in there and yields quite a cavernous cargo area. And just to prove this, the other day I trotted up to Pete's Ridge, which is about 45 minutes north of my joint, and I chuck in 16 bags of chook shit in the back, just to prove a point. Quite a distinctive smell on the way home too, I must say. Anywho, the car wasn't quite full then, so I stopped at the nursery on the way home and I threw in 3 of those 20-kilo bags of decorative pebbles for the garden and 3 of those massive bales of sugarcane mulch, the better to protect the garden from the hot upcoming Aussie summer. And it still wasn't really full. So this car is quite versatile from a people and logistics point of view and any combination thereof. Effectively, you can have 7 seats or 6 or 6 or 6 or 5 or 4 or 4 or 4 or 4 or 3 or 3 or 3 or 2 with varying load space configurations to match. So as you can see, Sorento is something of a Swiss Army knife of family convenience and logistic flexibility. But enough of me gushing about it. Let's find out what I really didn't like, the better for you to make an informed decision. Back to you, Fat Man. There he is, ladies. Cletus Van Dam, MD, PhD, BSA, emerging soon from a cargo bay near you, live in Shitsville. Sorento, great SUV, GT line, very nice. But like all vehicles, not perfect. And I reckon owning a car is like all other relationships, right? The ones that you might enter into, except of course the pay-by-hour ones. You need to embrace the good aspects and you need to tolerate the imperfections, lest in time they militate and overwhelm you. So here are those Sorento imperfections which demand your tolerance. P.S. This is the bit where you can infer that Kia is not paying me under the table for this review. The driver's left footrest, way too flat. And this is possibly a design legacy from several generations back where the parking brake was that awful foot-operated kind that the Americans seem to enjoy so much. It's a kind of minor criticism, I guess. Then there's the high-tech miracle of the so-called lane-keeping assistant. This system is awful. In fact, it is beyond awful. When it is set to active, lane-keeping assistant grabs the steering wheel, in a manner of speaking, and let's be kind, it helps you steer around a bend. It's like an intermittent autopilot, except on Valium. This is a system that the owner's manual says is just a convenience function and the steering wheel is not always controlled. OMFG. What were they thinking? How utterly useless. Lane keeping assistant is both extremely disconcerting and wholly unhelpful on the open road. And my advice, buy the car, drive it, but first, dive into the menus and turn off lane keeping assistant forever. Yes, you can turn it off, otherwise I probably would not recommend you buy this car. Which brings me to lane departure warning, an allied but different system. It's the one that beeps when you get near the lane markings on the edges. People tell me that they want all this safety stuff, but trust me here, you do not want this. And I'm not singling out the Sorento in particular. Lane departure warning systems in general in many vehicles are unilaterally retarded. For starters, there are too many false positive warnings. Warnings when you don't need warnings. And that leads to you ignoring them because that's what false positives tend to make you do. And then there are the false negatives. No warnings when you actually require warnings. In fact, the Sorento Owner's Manual identifies no less than 21 different conditions in which the lane departure warning system might fail to warn you that you are incipiently running off the road or into the oncoming traffic, which is also, let's again be kind, somewhat flawed. So my strong advice there, turn off lane departure warning as well, also, thankfully, easy to do, and consider the high-tech miracle of, instead of relying on this kind of technology, actually pay attention to the dynamic driving environment unfolding in real time before you. Not very sexy, I know, but a good idea if you don't want to arrive at your destination dead. Next, the stainless steel side steps, a uniquely GT line styling upgrade. They certainly look good, but they're an abomination in practice. A, you don't need them. B, Sorento is insufficiently high to merit an intermediate step on the way in. And trust me, if you need that step, your feet will not reach the pedals. C, it's actually very hard to put more than a third of a human foot on them. They're just garnish. And D, they actually make it harder to step out of the vehicle because you have to step way past them on the way out. I laddered a perfectly serviceable pair of fishnet stockings on them, collecting that chook shit. Hate that. The third seating row now, quite okay, even for adults on a short trip. There's even air conditioning back there, so it's hardly Abu Ghraib. But the curtain airbags do not extend to offer complete protection in row 3, making row 3 occupants somewhat second-class citizens on safety, and many 7-seater SUVs are like this, so you should check. And if you have child restraints installed in the 2 outboard seating spaces in row 2, access to row 3 is severely compromised. It's a Cirque du Soleil performance. Or you could unmount one of the row 2 restraints, which of itself is often also a Cirque du Soleil performance. If you want to use row 3 that often and you value the safety of the occupants back there, and you've got a young tribe, many of whom are in child restraints, check out my latest report on the Kia Carnival, which I think you'll find a lot more practical in terms of access. And it has full-length curtains, plus more load space when all of those seats are occupied. Not as sexy though. There's no robotic reverse parking system, as there is on the Santa Fe Highlander, but the 360-degree camera system on the GT line leaves you with really no excuses about why this process might represent a spatial perception challenge. Everyone smarter than Donald Trump could probably reverse park the Sorento GT line, and let's face it, that is statistically everyone. Sorento GT line's a great SUV. It has some flaws, certainly, but in context, you can turn 2 of those off and perhaps live with the others, depending on your own priorities. Big families who will not put themselves in a people mover and who need versatility should definitely put this SUV on the shortlist. However, the Sorento GT line will be wrong for you if you want to do proper off-road adventuring. You can certainly poke the Sorento GT down endless dirt roads if that's what you want to do, and easy tracks as well. And the all-wheel drive system with the lockable centre diff will extend the envelope for you, especially in slippery conditions. But this vehicle is not a hardcore off-roader. Sorento is the wrong choice for you if you want to spend hours slogging through, I don't know, soft sand and otherwise whipping the wilderness into blue singlet submission. And towing. Bit of a moderate towing vehicle. Fine for moderate towing. Sorento will tow up to 2 tonnes with brakes, but the tow ball download limit is 100 kilos. And it's that limit that might screw you over if the trailer is approaching 2 tonnes here in Australia. Sorento is set up this way because the rest of the world generally applies a 5% static tow ball download on trailers for dynamic stability. But here in Australia, we are somewhat out of step, and that's why we use 10% download in the design of many trailers. Hyundai offers a genuine load assist kit on Santa Fe, and that increases the standard 100 kilo download limit to 150 kilos. Kia, however, offers no such comparable upgrade kit. You could also have a look at the Mitsubishi Outlander on this, which has a bog standard 160 kilo tow ball download limit, complementing its 2-tonne tow capacity. But the Outlander is not half the vehicle Sorento is in many other respects. I'm a big fan of the Sorento GT line. It's great value, but it's certainly not cheap. After testing it for a week, I can tell you the Sorento GT line is one of the best mainstream 7-seat SUVs that money can buy. It's like, I don't know, mainstream luxury. Maybe that's an emerging category in this seemingly infinitely fractured market. You might have noticed that I do my reviews a bit differently. They're not about delivering advertising to you. They're not about keeping some car maker sweet. We've got more than enough journos already doing that, and I can't do that. This review is about you, if you are that person who might actually spend the big bucks on this car. And if you are that person, my strong recommendation is you can buy a Sorento and be confident in its reliability. And if you do happen to have a problem down the track, Kia, in my experience, is one of the best car makers in terms of being a wholly ethical operator when it comes to supporting the customer. Some dealers remain hopeless, of course, but I've never seen Kia Australia brush aside a customer who deserved support. This latest 2018 Sorento is a great evolution of what was already one of the market's leaders. You could own one of these and be really happy with it for several years, provided you make friends with the flaws. If you've got any questions or if you want to buy one but you dread going face-to-face with a dealer, hit me up via the website. That's what I do, and it's painless. Australia only though, sadly. World domination plans still pending. I'm Cadogan. I hope this review helps you choose the right new SUV. Thanks for watching.